Well, here we go again, people. Welcome back into the Fantasy Alarm live stream. I think that we've gotten our tech issues out of the way. Here's hoping that you can hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? James, can you hear me?
Howard, are you there?
James, can you hear me, James?
Tech, testing.
Tech
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 1, 2. Wait. I think you can hear me now. Hey!
I heard something.
All right, so we're out of the way there. We're done with that again. So here's quickly what you missed by not having the audio. Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, book it. Live stream right before Monday Night Football. Wager Alarm live stream with me and Mish when we discuss the lines and which ones we're thinking they're going to move. Wednesday, it's a DFS NFL watch list live stream where John and Pemba, who's producing, and James Grande here right now. We're going to be talking about the watch list and players we're looking at for our upcoming contest. Thursday, it's a lot of start-sit stuff with me and Brandon, Marianne Lee. And then Friday, we do a late night one, 9 p.m., where Craig Mish and I, we go over Wager Alarm again. We talk about the lines, the Westgate Super Contest. We're both entered in that. So we're going to make our picks every Friday night for you guys on that one. So that's what's going on here. Monday through Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Friday, boom, 9. Oh, yeah, Sundays, right before game time, 11 a.m. Eastern. You can catch me and Brandon, Marianne Lee here as well. So we'll have this posted on the website. Just want to get you guys ready, primed, week 1 starting. And again, so here we go. Watch list comes out every Tuesday night. Gets updated straight through until the game's on, until the playbook comes out on Saturday. And then lineups come out on Sunday. So what we want to do here is, before I go in and make those first set of edits, want to talk to James, want to talk to Mpemba, and get those guys' thoughts on a lot of these players. All the coaching articles, those are out by now. Quarterback coach, wide receiver coach, running back coach, top 3. The tight end coach as well. That comes out on Thursdays, right, James?
Yep.
Yeah, and, so we'll whisper on that one a little bit later on. But because James is already doing his research, we can talk about the tight ends here and lock them down. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at the watch list, take a look at the coaching articles, and talk about the players that we see in both, because those seem to be the ones that we're honing in the most. So let's go position by position here. Quarterbacks, let's start with it. John and Pemba does the quarterback coach. 2 players who cross over right now, James, that we've been talking about, Phillip Rivers and the infamous Andy Dalton. Like, this one kills me, man. Like, people are like, I drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's facing the Vikings. Should I pick up Andy Dalton off waivers and start him week 1? Like, kill me on that question. Kill me on that question. However, dude, Andy Dalton, let's do it right now. Let's hit the ginger. Let's talk Andy Dalton for a bit here. He's going up against the Colts. Their secondary blows, dude. It blew last year. Does not look good this year either. Got some weapons back. Tyler Eifert supposedly healthy. Talk to me about Andy Dalton.
Yeah, I mean, the price tag right off the bat is something that stands out to me. 5.8K over on DraftKings is fantastic. We're going to see a lot of ownership at the top, because everyone, wants stability. And Andy Dalton is obviously not that. If you're looking for stability, you should look somewhere else. But the matchup is great. I mean, last year we saw him play a really good game against a bad Colts offense, 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, defense, sorry. And the Colts, you mentioned how bad they were. They allowed the 6th most passing yards in football last year. So we have a lot of things working on our side. I don't necessarily know if it's someone I would use in cash games. The price tag intrigues me in cash. But like I said, you want the stability. You want someone who you know is going to get you close to 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, we've seen Dalton turnover prone in the past, so that's a little scary for cash too. But I think he's an excellent tournament play, just based on everything that we've both already said.
All right, but let me ask you, how great of a tournament play is he if he's going to be chalky as all hell? Like, everybody's on Andy Dalton. It's not even just like it's the seasonal people as well. but it's also the DFS community. So when you look at a guy like Dalton, you're like, okay, yeah, great matchup, but is he really? I mean, like, we'll have his ownership percentages over here on Fantasy Alarm, but when you're looking at that, are you looking at just cashing a GPP, or are you looking at winning a GPP?
I mean, I think why I say he's a good GPP play is because if you don't have to be out there at every position in a tournament. You know, you could put someone who is going to be chalky in your lineup and then differentiate at different positions. You can go spend, we talked about price for Andy Dalton. We can spend down there and then go get 2 high-priced receivers who might be lower owned, or 2 high-priced running backs. So, yeah, the price tag and the matchup are maybe allows people to use him more, but I think that we can be different elsewhere and still win a tournament if you want to use Andy Dalton in a tournament.
Okay. I mean, listen, obviously reasonable. You got to differentiate yourself from the pack somehow. Might not always have to be a quarterback. Obviously, yeah, the price tag for him, 5,800 on DraftKings
yeah,
it was?
5,800, yeah.
I mean, that's, you look at, like, that's $1,000 less than Breeze. It's 800 less than Big Ben. And it's actually, look at that. I mean, it's 600 less than the next guy I actually want to talk about. A guy who I'm actually looking at for my cash games this week. That's Phillip Rivers. Like, I'm looking at him. The Chiefs secondary does not look good. They lost Marcus Peters from last year, and also Eric Berry. Now all of a sudden he's dealing with coming up lame. I think it's like a hamstring issue for Eric Berry. So what about Phillip Rivers? Talk to me about him.
Yeah, and like you mentioned weapons with Andy Dalton. I mean, Rivers has, a plethora of weapons himself. I know Antonio Gates is old, but they brought him back. I mean, Mike Williams, healthy. He's right now the 3rd wide receiver on their depth chart. So, I mean, it's an overall great matchup. I mean, the Chiefs last year only had the 24th most sacks in football too. So I think the pressure, the pocket will be clean for Rivers all game. They allowed the 4th most passing yards, and that was with Berry and Peters. So, I mean, without them, how many yards can we expect from Phillip Rivers and them to give up throughout the season? So I think Phillip Rivers is a slam dunk. 6.4K is really reasonable. Even the 7.5K over on FanDuel is super reasonable. So I'm with you, all in on Phillip Rivers in cash games as well.
Yeah, I think he's definitely got a lot of potential there. You got a good pass catching back in Melvin Gordon, which is actually, I mean, that's one of the things that I love most is when I start looking for my quarterback and seeing who's got like the good pass catching running back, because that's going to add up a ton of numbers there as well. So struggles in the KC secondary right now. I'm not a big fan of their pass rush either. I think it's going to be a very interesting situation here. Chargers have a very high octane offense. And yeah, listen, you've got Keenan Allen. You've got Mike Williams, who's everybody's darling over there.
Right.
You've got Tyrell Williams, who I think he's always coming in very underrated. I'm not going to talk about him in like a sense of I'm going to use him in DFS because I want to see some sort of like targets thrown his way. But knowing that Phillip Rivers has all of these options, throw in Antonio Gates. I don't want to throw in Antonio Gates like that.
It's just another guy. It's just another guy. Yeah, it's just another weapon. And, it's probably indicative of the 25 implied point total that they have, which is nice to see as well. So,
yeah, definitely. All right. So, again, a couple of other quarterbacks who are sitting on the DFS watch list right now. Handsome Tom Brady. Obviously, that Houston secondary, they have issues. And let's face it, with Sony Michel banged up and who knows what's going on, Rex Burkhead should be okay. But I think this might be more of a James White kind of week here for Brady to have that extra weapon. Big Ben, Drew Brees, both these guys in good, solid matchups here. Although, let me ask you, Big Ben on the road, does it scare you?
Yes. And, Cleveland's secondary wasn't horrible, but, I mean, no Le'Veon, right? So we don't know what the plan of attack really is going to be and how many pass attempts to run attempts. So like even if he's not the best, the volume for Roethlisberger is going to be there. You know, the volume was there with Le'Veon. I can't imagine what it's going to be without him. So, I mean, sure, I mean, he hasn't always been great on the road, but the volume, especially the quarterback in DFS, you know, like if he's going to throw it 40 times as opposed to someone who's going to throw it 20 times, I'm going to take Roethlisberger.
All right, so let's move on to running back here because obviously, listen, all the news, it's all the rage, it's all we ended up having to talk about on the Fantasy Alarm Show on Sirius, and it's Lev Bell not reporting. Rumors now that maybe it's not until week 8. Rumors now that maybe it's not until week 10. Listen, the guy could show up on Saturday. For all we know, he could show up on Saturday and still get himself a game check. So, but the problem is that I'm not using him. Not in seasonal, not in DFS, because he's had 0 camp. So let's talk about a DFS big super bargain here. Like, could you find a bigger bargain than James Conner at this moment right now?
No, you can't. But I mean, like, I think both of the backs are in play here, right? And Jalen Samuels at 3K on DraftKings. I mean, Conner's definitely the bell cow here. But he's not the best pass catcher. So I think a sneaky GPP route is when you're going to get Samuels. And we talked just about Roethlisberger volume, right?
Yeah.
If they're passing the ball, Samuels could end up being on the field more than Conner. So, I mean, I think he at 4.5K is someone that you got to consider in a lot of builds, you know, because he's going to allow you to spend up elsewhere. But in tournaments, you know, 3K, he's min-price Jalen Samuels for a team that might throw the ball 40, 45 times. I don't know. I mean, 3K? So I think they're both equally. Like, I would stay away from Samuels on FanDuel because it's half PPR. We're not going to get the full point per reception. Mm-hmm. And I would lean towards Conner over there, 100%. 5K, it's a great price tag on FanDuel. That's a price tag you do not see for a starting running back over on FanDuel. So I think Conner's for sure the guy on FanDuel. But I think Samuels maybe, to me, has more value because he's the better pass catcher and because we're going to see Roethlisberger aired out so frequently.
I absolutely love that. I said back in July, maybe, that Jalen Samuels was a guy that you wanted to keep your eye on. And I said that I thought that Lev Bell was going to end up holding out again. I thought that he was going to get hurt this year as opposed to last year where he didn't get hurt and whatnot. So I've been touting Samuels. Conner is definitely the guy who's moved in, who will probably see the majority of touches. But you make a very great point here that if Big Ben's passing, Samuels is likely to be the guy who's going to be on the field. So I dig that very much. All right, running back coach, Tom Vecchio this year. I'm bringing Dom Murtha over. Dom Murtha's still doing running back workloads on the site, but I brought Dom Murtha in to help me with a lot of the game recaps. Does a great job breaking down games. Very good football analytical mind. So I wanted to bring him on there to find those hidden gems that a lot of people miss inside games. So Tom Vecchio stepping up, and he's going to do our running back coach. Now, there's not a lot of overlap between the couple of guys who I listed in the watch list and his, but we both do seem to be on the same page when it comes to Christian McCaffrey. So Dallas Cowboys in Carolina. Norv Turner's saying 30, 35 touches. I mean, yeah, I know, right? That's insanity right there. But does this put Christian McCaffrey in a spot for you, especially on DK where it's a PPR format? And 6,400, I think he is, right? So he's a little bit on the. I think that's kind of underpriced actually for McCaffrey.
Yeah, he's the 10th most expensive running back in a PPR format for a guy who is known really. I mean, he's known for his all around, you know, we saw him literally do everything in college and a little bit of that last year too. But I mean, I don't want to say he's a pass catcher first, but like it's pretty 50-50. Like he's excellent in space. Last year, Dallas actually allowed the 6th most receptions to running backs, 97 total on the year, and that's a lot of receptions to the running back position. And you know what? I mean, that's what we want in a PPR. Our running backs. I mean, I don't see a better. I mean, he's a lock for me in any format you want. Right, 6 points. The price tag is good. The matchup is good. 30 to 35 carries sounds awfully enticing. I mean, what else do you need, right? I mean, what else do you need?
Listen, I dig it on DraftKings, absolutely, with McCaffrey. I mean, just he's 7,500 on FanDuel. It's not hugely priced, but if I'm looking at him as like a PPR guy, and I'm sitting in a half-point PPR format, I might tilt and want to pay down a little bit. He's not in the running back coach, but he is the cover boy for my watch list this year. That's Derrick Henry. I'm looking at Derrick Henry, $6,800 on FanDuel this week. Matt LaFleur, new offensive coordinator for the Titans. He loves establishing the run. He loves to use that inside zone run. And he's going up against Miami, who lost Sue in the offseason. They've got I think teams are going to run all over Miami throughout the entire season. So while Dion Lewis is the pass catcher, and I think that he's going to be, I think he's going to be a good option for seasonal fantasy people this year. I'd have to pick and choose my moments when to use him in DFS. This week, I kind of like the DFS use of Derrick Henry.
There are 22 running backs priced more than him over on DraftKings. And I do agree Dion Lewis is obviously going to – it's kind of like the Jalen Samuels thing where he's going to be – Lewis is going to be on the field in passing downs. But the Dolphins gave up 11 touchdowns to running backs last year with Ndamukong Suh. Now that he's gone, I mean, you're going up against a team you mentioned who is going to pound the ball right up the gut. And Henry's a big body. I love Derrick Henry this week. Maybe, I think it's like you said, it's going to be matchup based for him because there are going to be a lot of games where him and Lewis are sharing the work. But I mean, you touched on it. Everything you said spot on. Derrick Henry 5.4K. I don't know if I would do it in cash. We kind of had this discussion before, but for tournaments, and I don't know about the ownership either. I think you're onto something. Low-owned Derrick Henry sounds juicy to me.
Yeah, I mean, did you see the projected ownership numbers
yes.
over on the watch list for Derrick Henry right now?
Yep.
I mean,
yes.
That you want to talk about a way to differentiate yourself. You want to go chalky with Andy Dalton and use that. Our projected ownership rates here for Derrick Henry about 3% over on FanDuel. And just under 3% over on DK. So I think it's a very interesting situation here to get that kind of a low ownership percentage. If Derrick Henry breaks off one of those patented runs
right.
that we've seen him do and off to the races here, that could be that's a difference maker in a GP.
Win you a tournament. If you get someone does that at 3%, you can literally win. There's $100,000 more in your bank account than you had previously.
Yeah. So, all right, let's it's kind of funny here. So we look at quarterbacks and running backs right now, and we've got Andy Dalton as a potential GPP bargain. Now we're going to throw Derrick Henry in there. We'll do a FanDuel lineup here for a second. We could do it for DK. We could do it for both, actually.
Right.
So Andy Dalton on both sites.
Okay.
On FanDuel, you go Derrick Henry. On DraftKings, you throw in Jalen Samuels. All right, and you do that min price thing there with McCaffrey, and then over on FanDuel you pair James Conner up with Derrick Henry, okay, which gives us an assload of money for our wide receivers and tight ends, like an assload of money. So now the question is how about paying up for some wide receivers here? And guys who I like, Colby Conway did the wide receiver coach article over on Fantasy Alarm. We have a couple of guys who are high-priced, high-point potential that cross over. That's Antonio Brown. That's Michael Thomas. I think both of these guys are in great spots for you to allow you to pay up for these guys.
Yeah, I just inputted Dalton, Samuels, McCaffrey. and you got 5.8K left. And that you haven't even added your defense or your tight end if you spend down. So we have a boatload of money. Antonio Brown, I mean, there's not like we don't need to really go into it, right? I mean, he's the best receiver in football against a Browns team that he absolutely torched last year, and he's been torching for how many years? I mean, week 1 last year, 11 receptions, 182 yards against the Browns. Obviously, a different team, moving parts in Cleveland. But we also, the third time you're going to hear me say it about Roethlisberger and the volume. If Roethlisberger throwing the ball, you're damn sure it's going to be the Antonio Brown first, and then everyone else, lagging behind. So, I mean, we can see an obscure amount of targets to Brown this week, and volume is not only great for quarterbacks and running backs, it's absolutely necessary for wide receivers as well. So I mean, he's the top wide receiver if you have the money. Easily.
There's nothing better. There's really nothing better than like being able to pay up for an Antonio Brown on DraftKings on a week where he's like 12 to 14 targets,
right.
9-10 receptions, busted out for like 182 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like there's just nothing better than that. And listen, he's got that potential this week. He really does against Cleveland.
I mean, we said it off. Another thing I asked you off air was, who is the one, if you were starting your lineups, right? If you were building your lineups, who would you start with? I mean, just the more we talk about it, I mean, maybe for me, it might just be Antonio Brown, first guy in my lineup. Just knowing we're not going to have Le'Veon there, and knowing Roethlisberger is going to air it out, and the Pittsburgh total, they have a high total. This Vegas is projecting a high scoring game. So I mean, I don't see a way that I don't have Antonio Brown in my cash game lineups, just based on just everything surrounding him right now.
All right, we're talking stacks because this is exactly what we're talking about here. On a week where Lev Bell hasn't reported, let's say Lev Bell doesn't report and he misses week 1, Steelers stack. Well, you go Roethlisberger, Connor/Samuels, Antonio Brown. You think that's a chalk stack? You think that's going to be a little bit on the contrarian side, that people are going to kind of be concerned about Big Ben on the road and what they do without that kind of a running back in Lev Bell?
I mean, I still think because they're facing Cleveland, it could be chalky. I think the more contrarian stack is going Samuels over Connor, and I think the cash game stack would be to go Roethlisberger, Connor, Antonio Brown.
I can dig that. All right, talk about some other wide receivers we can pay up for. Can we pay up? We can, of course, because this is a Fantasy Alarm live stream. We can do whatever the hell we want. Let's talk Michael Thomas here, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Saints Bucks. It's kind of an interesting game here. I was talking to Craig Mish on the Wager Alarm live stream yesterday. I was really kind of concerned about the way this line was. Like the Saints, I guess the Saints they had beaten Tampa Bay by 14 or more points in like the last 3 games, and yet the line in this game was only 9.5. And so the question is what does Vegas know that we don't know? Where, you look at the situation here, you look at the Saints, you look at the Bucks, and why all of a sudden is the line low? Can Tampa Bay keep them contained, or are you like, screw that, man? It's going to be Michael Thomas. You don't have Mark Ingram, in the backfield. They can't give the ball to Kamara 30 times in this one here, so they got to throw.
I mean, I think maybe Tampa's pass rush has obviously improved. Jason Pierre-Paul is really good, and he's really good at containing the run. So that could be something but I don't think that would move the line so much. But let's get down to it. Tampa allowed the most receiving yards in all of football last year. The Saints have the highest total on the board as well, right? Like, I don't know. I don't like. Yes, obviously the 9.5 is weird, but you have the team who gave up the most passing yards last year going up against the team with the highest implied total this week. So, like, I mean, sure, if you don't trust that, if you think something's fishy for like cash games, sure, don't play it. But I mean, the Breeze to Thomas just pairing, I think is going to be a really popular play this week. But it's warranted. Everything like, I mean, again, they could blow him out, and it could be over by halftime, and it could be more run. And we don't see as much as Michael Thomas in the second half as we did in the first. But he might get in the end zone twice in the first half. So I don't think I'm not looking too much into 9.5 based on the result. I mean, the numbers clearly favor Thomas and the Saints.
I agree. Sorry, I had to adjust the headset there. I had this fear. Can I share a fear with you? Did I tell you about the time that there was a spider in my headset?
Nope.
Frightening, dude.
I gotta wear earbuds.
Like nobody's sleeping now thinking about a spider sitting in the headset. But everything that you said about Thomas and Breeze and what we do expect from the Saints, and who's Carlton Davis? That's the corner who's going to try and keep pace. Michael Thomas. That's kind of goofy. That's silly. All right, so we like Brown. We like Thomas. Let's go one more wide. Give me a wide receiver who may or may not be on my watch list here. Who you're eyeballing.
So he's actually on Colby's coaches, Emmanuel Sanders. I think Emmanuel Sanders is poised to have another really solid year. We saw last year he just didn't have a quarterback, and the whole Denver offense was just in shambles all year. I think it kind of blows my mind to see Case Keenum he was a 4,000-yard passer last year. But that's what Sanders needs. I mean, we saw the 3 years prior to last year, he was over 1,000 yards. And we saw, like, we've seen it with other guys. Larry Fitzgerald he's never had a great quarterback, but when he does, his numbers are always, he always benefits from it. And I think Sanders is just going to be that type of guy that we've seen in the past. And the Legion of Boom is no longer. There's nobody in that secondary that is scary. So I think Sanders is poised to get back to that, 8, 9, 10 reception games at times that we've seen in the past for 100 yards and even a touchdown. So, I love him here. And it's just going to be a continuous theme throughout the year. Emmanuel Sanders is going to be someone that I have my eye on.
I like it. All right. I just want to, before we keep going here, because listen, a lot of people are down on Denver receivers here, and I don't really understand the reason for that. You can talk about what their numbers were for the last 2 years, but let's also point out who their quarterback was in that time, and he was absolute garbage. I just want to, before we continue on with the tight ends here, I just want to zip through some of the comments and just make sure we got some people here who have some questions. I got Nick over on Facebook lands wants to, this is not even a DFS question here. It's just a start and a half point PPR. Alfred Morris, Adrian Peterson, Crabtree, or Godwin. Or James White.
None.
None.
Crabtree.
Half point PPR, I'll probably just go with Adrian Peterson here. I mean, the run defense for Arizona isn't really that great. And you want to listen, he's going to start. You want to get the guy who's going to have the ball in his hands. And, we've just kind of seen that happen. So I'm going to go with Adrian Peterson. Grande says maybe Crabtree.
I mean, they're just, it's all wishy-washy.
You didn't sound too confident.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian Peterson for volume. We talked about it all segment, volume, right? So if you want the volume, he's going to get it. Crabtree, you never know with Joe Flacco. So,
right. Couple of comments here over on Periscope. Weather issues in Cleveland on Sunday. Does that concern you guys, particularly using Antonio Brown in cash?
I don't think it would ever, because Antonio Brown has the breakaway speed. He has the elusiveness. It would worry me more about Roethlisberger, but I still think because it kind of seems like if Roethlisberger has to drop back when he's in bad weather, he will target Brown more. So I think volume-wise, I don't think Brown should take a dip. maybe big play possibility would go down, but I think he's so good and so safe that it's just I'm not necessarily worried about the weather.
I mean, I'll keep an eye on it, and
Right.
we'll see just how bad it's going to be. I mean, if we're talking about it raining sideways, then yeah, obviously, then we would have to take a look at that. But I mean, listen, if we're just talking about, some wind and some drizzle, no, I'm not gonna shy too much away from that connection especially against Cleveland.
Right.
All right, James. Hey, Jimmy, you know what? I mean, talking to Jim Bowden, talking to James Grande, John Impemba. I mean, it's all very, you guys all sound the same. How about that? You all look different. You all sound the same. Let's go through a couple of tight ends here. You, James Grande, you do the tight end coach. So before we get to your whole article, and I will let you pound your chest about your favorite tight ends. We had 2 overlaps. And I think these are probably the 2 of the chalkiest overlaps. So I figure we should definitely get to them. Obviously, Rob Gronkowski, always in play. He's always the top tight end. As long as Gronk is healthy and Brady's on the field, then you have to look to pay up like that. And the other guy that we were very similar on also was Trey Burton. Now, it's a little bit more risky with Burton. Gronk cash, Burton GPP. What are you looking at with these 2 guys?
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed that. Like, I feel safer with Gronk in a cash game. The issue with that is if we are spending up at wide receiver, like we said, it's going to be tougher to get a really expensive Gronk. And, at the price tag that he is, which is on DraftKings, 6.9K, we're kind of looking for a touchdown, right? Which obviously isn't something that he's unfamiliar with, but we are going to be looking for that touchdown. Now, the good thing is no Edelman, so more targets his way. And last year, Houston allowed the sixth most yards and 4th most touchdowns to the tight end position. So, I mean, you group all those things together and you just have a lock for at the top.
What if I tell you this, though? Like, I was looking at that whole thing, and last year, during the entire tight end whispering thing that went down, here was the thing, is that Houston, at the start of the season, they were like, I want to say they were like 6th or 7th in the league against the tight end through like the first 3 weeks of the season. Then J.J. Watt got hurt. Whitney Merciless got hurt. Clowney, another one who's perpetually hurt. Right. So those guys, once they were injured, all of a sudden, we started seeing the tight ends hitting it a little bit more against the Texans. So now when we're starting off with Merciless, Watt, and Clowney, they're all in. Right. Does that give you any kind of pause whatsoever? You think that these guys will get real physical with Gronk, or you think Gronk will be able to withstand it?
I mean, I don't think physicality has ever really bothered Gronkowski. He's a physical specimen at
yeah, but the dude mows over people. Right, like nickel corners. Nickel corners are 5'10", 180 pounds. Like those guys trying to cover Gronk, that's like he's like shoving him in the face. And, whatever. He's like swatting him away like flies. But when you talk about J.J. Watt maybe dropping back into some coverage in the middle, there's a different story there all of a sudden.
I mean, yeah, and I think that is definitely a great point. But also on the flip side is, Houston's pass rush is now going to be improved. So we've seen over, the last couple of years, Brady's getting the ball out of his hands very quickly. And without Edelman, with Danny Amendola gone, it kind of seems like Gronk is going to be, even more heavily targeted early down after the snap. So I think it's a little scarier. The numbers could be skewed, but with the pass rush being what it is, healthy for Houston, I think the ball is going to be coming out of Brady's hands fast, and that means more targets for Gronk potentially.
All right. Well, talk to me about the new guy in Chicago right now, Trey Burton, he's everybody's darling in fantasy
Right.
drafts. They play him. They want him, like Matt Nagy going from Kansas City to Chicago, wants to use Trey Burton just like he used Travis Kelce, the concept of the U tight end. Now, Burton's not as big as, say, like Gronk or Kelce or even Greg Olsen, but the dude's still 6'3",
right.
Still a big guy, and I think that when you're talking about matching him up against, again, a 5'10" nickel corner, it's something to pay attention to. Give me your thoughts on him this week.
I mean, they didn't go out and spend $32 million on him to not feature him in the offense, you know? So I think I love Burton. Like you said, he's been everyone's kind of not sleeper, but he's been everyone's target in fantasy drafts. He's now going to be a popular DFS target. I think we saw the potential with him in preseason. I know preseason is preseason, but just in one game for week 2, 4 catches and a touchdown. I think 45 yards. I think that could be like a nice expectation to set. I'm not expecting him to get 20 targets a game, but a lot of young quarterbacks are going to rely on their tight end. And yes, Chicago has more weapons this year on the outside, but I think that might even free Burton up more because there'll be a lot more one-on-ones in the middle of the field. I mean, 64 targets between Zach Miller and Deion Sims last year, and there's Zach Miller and Deion Sims. I think Burton is much more talented than the both of them. So I think we could be looking at a solid outing, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a touchdown against Green Bay this week.
Be very nice to see. All right, again, guys, James, myself, John, and Pembo, we're going to be doing this DFS live stream every Wednesday night right here at Fantasy Alarm, going through the watch list and kind of helping you guys get prepped and ready so that when the Saturday playbook comes out, you got a better idea of who we all like, who we don't like, and what you might want to try in cash games versus GPP tournaments over there. So definitely check that out, guys. If you're still drafting in your seasonal leagues, look at that. And, we got some questions here. One more question. Can I drop CJ Anderson to pick up Eric Ebron? No, don't do it. Don't do it. See, now that ruins me from answering any questions now. So I'll just go back and I'll tell you guys this. If you still haven't drafted, okay, it's not too late to get that draft help. FantasyAlarm.com/Bender. That brings you to the page where you can pick up the ultimate cheat sheet. Costs you $750. It'll be the best $750 you ever spend. Just so you know, though, I'll say this. Blanket statement, Lev Bell. If you're drafting tonight, all right, I'll take Lev Bell in the late second, early third round. That's where I'll take him. If I'm going after James Conner, I'm looking at Conner somewhere around the 7th round. All right, so make that adjustment on the ultimate cheat sheet as you're going through it. I don't want you guys to freak out or whatever and be like, oh, I'm looking at this. We haven't had time to update the PDF and the season starts tomorrow. So that's where you're at with that right now. But you can go to FantasyAlarm.com/Bender. You can get that cheat sheet, which, again, I mean, you should see some of the drafts that people have sent me using the cheat sheet. It's friggin' amazing. It really is. It's absolutely amazing. And then also, guys, $75 gets you full season access over at Fantasy Alarm for the entire NFL season. That's seasonal content and DFS content. And also you'll end up getting, if you don't already have that Fantasy Alarm draft guide, there are a ton of articles in that draft guide, like our offensive line piece, that you're going to be able to use throughout the rest of the season as well. So for $75, I really don't think you're going to find a better deal. I really don't think you're going to find a better deal.
You're not.
And I work in the industry. I've seen what everybody's charging. So, James, final thoughts for week 1 DFS. Are you excited? Are you playing the Thursday game? What are you going to say?
I'm not going to play the Thursday game. 1-game slates I'm not interested in, but I will be playing a ton of DFS on Sunday. I'll tell you that.
There you go. There you go. I'm going to be playing a ton of DFS too. All right, guys. Again, check in on the Fantasy Alarm live stream tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's me and Brandon Marianne Lee. Get those start-sit questions ready. We are absolutely going to help you. Again, hit the live chat over at fantasyalarm.com, and we'll be able to take care of any more of your questions. So, for James Grande, I'm Howard Bender. This has been the Fantasy Alarm live stream. We'll check you guys tomorrow.